Hey, what's up guys, Rare Bishop here and welcome back to my channel. And also, welcome to my third video review, this time for EA's Army of Two, The Devil's Cartel, the third game in this franchise. I know some people are thinking, why are they making a third game? Well, it's because these games do surprisingly well, sales-wise, and so it makes sense for them to release another one. And before I get into the actual meat of the review, I just also want to mention this was co-developed by EA Montreal, Visceral, EA Shanghai, EA Vancouver, and Danger Close Studios. Yes, that Danger Close that made the Medal of Honor and the Medal of Honor Warfighter games over the last few years. So the game's very much like a Ubisoft game if you think about it, where it's co-developed by almost all of EA's major studios besides the sports studios like Tiburon and EA Sports Canada. So with that out of the way, let's just get right into it. The first thing you'll notice in this video, and if you ever decide to play the game, is you don't play as Salem and Rios this time around. You play as two new recruits into the TWO family called Alpha and Bravo. I know, very original names, but you do see Salem and Rios throughout the game. As a matter of fact, you see them very early on. They actually play a significant role in the story and in how the game progresses. But when playing as Alpha and Bravo, the gameplay actually does improve. Let's get to the gameplay first. The gameplay and the shooting and everything feels a whole lot a little tighter than in the last few Army of Two games. The shooting feels better. It feels like when you shoot at an enemy, you're actually going to shoot him instead of, and they don't have as much health. They're not bullet sponges as much as they were in the previous two. And there are some heavy enemies, which most people who play the Army of Two games will know. Those are the guys that you have to necessarily shoot in the face, or you got to get behind them and shoot them in the back. There aren't really any of those this time around. There are brutes that they call now, but you don't really have to go around them and flank them and stuff like that. There's not a whole lot of times, scenarios where you need to draw aggro or your partner needs to draw aggro so you can get around an enemy or get around a turret. That happens occasionally, but it doesn't happen as often as people fans of the series might think. And when it comes to, with the gameplay, they added a new overkill mode, which is basically the aggro meter from the last two games. But when you get there's a bar on the side, on the right hand side, you'll see it in the video. When it gets all the way full up, you hit the right bumper, you go into somewhat of a slow-mo thing. That's single overkill if you only activate it by yourself. And so what you're able to do is you're able to, obviously you don't have to reload. It's just you keep dumping your ammo and you keep dumping until that bar unfills, and you shoot your enemies. You shoot certain explosions like barrels. You can shoot through walls, certain walls, not all the walls, but certain walls, and it's a little bit more gory. When we're talking about the gameplay here around, when you're in that overkill mode, you can see enemies' heads pop off. You can see their arms dismember. You can see, if you shoot them in the chest, you can see the inside, like their lungs and stuff. So it's definitely more gory this time around, and that's mainly due to the Frostbite 2 engine. And so when you take the Frostbite 2 engine into account, which is obviously a DICE engine, the game doesn't look great. The gameplay, like I said, feels better, but the game doesn't necessarily look better. Like the Frostbite 2 engine, what it does is it makes to where certain stuff in the environment is destructible. So like I said, the exploding barrels, obviously, they're destructible in any game, no matter if you have Frostbite 2 or not. But there are you can destroy certain enemies' cover. So if they're behind a wooden box or a wooden barrel, which you will see early on in the game, you can shoot right through that. But then also it's the other way around, vice versa. If you're behind a wooden thing, or if you're even behind, there's a place in the game where you're in a cemetery. If you're behind a tombstone, they can shoot, and you can shoot right through those tombstones. So the cover, and that's both good and bad. When you're playing the game, and the game is mainly a third-person shooter, a third-person cover-based shooter, sometimes it's hard to find cover, because every time you get to cover, your enemy is shooting you out of it. So it's sometimes difficult in that aspect. But then, like I said, it goes all the way, goes the other way around. You can shoot them out of cover. And since they're not as bullet sponges as they were in previous titles, the game's a little easier as well. Like I played through the game on medium. I'm working my way now through the game on insane, and it's not necessarily a difficult game. The game takes about 6 to 7 hours to complete, probably, depending on if you take your sweet time, or if you try to rush through it, and also what difficulty you play on. You can't play on insane from the get-go. You have to wait until you beat the game at least once. But it doesn't take an insane amount of time to complete. And the gameplay, like I said, it feels great. And then there's the story is very weird, because the majority of the Army of Two stories are extremely these witty banters, but back and forth between Riem and Salos. These catchy one-liners that you can usually laugh at, or you're like, oh man, really? You're disgusted by it. There's a few of that here. There's some witty banter between Alpha and Bravo, and there's some good one-liners, but not as much as previous games. The writing actually is not that terrible. The writing is about on par with the other two Army of Two games, if you take into account that there's no witty banter. But like the writing of the story and everything is pretty good. And when speaking of that, there is a plot twist that obviously I won't spoil here, but it's pretty predictable early on how it's going to unfold and how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And the thing is, they take a little too long there in the story twist to unveil it. They take about almost halfway through, maybe a little bit longer, before they unveil the twist that you already know is going to happen. And when they finally unveil it, I will say this, they do a good job of unveiling it. Although it takes forever to do it, they do a good job of revealing it. And I think that that's something that they can be commended for. Although it took forever for them to finally do it, they don't do a good job of setting it up, like I said, because it's so predictable. They do a good job of, once you actually figure out, hey, this is the story twist, and they show it to you, you're like, oh, that was a pretty good job of letting us know what it is. And getting back to the gameplay, I do apologize for jumping back and forth here. If you're playing single player, which obviously you would have an AI partner, that AI partner is improved. I know playing the other two Army of Two games, the AI in that game is your AI partner, sometimes very unreliable in certain spots. There are times where I remember exactly a few moments where you would have to draw aggro. You would be shooting the guys to draw aggro, and your AI partner would not go around to where they needed to go. They would just stay in one spot. So that does not happen this time around. The AI partner actually helps you out. When you tell him what to do, he actually does it. So if you do decide to play the game in single player, which I think that would be the wrong decision to do, but hey, if you do that, it's your prerogative. The AI partner is improved, and I think people will respect what they are able to do with that. If you do decide to play co-op, I did run across a few issues. First off, there's no multiplayer. I know the last two Army of Two games had versus multiplayer. There's none of that. There's only online co-op, the campaign co-op, that's it. And if you decide to do that, I ran across a few glitches as a guest. First off, if you're the guest in a co-op game, you cannot, once you get into the game, if you go back to the armory, which is the armory, let's get into the armory real quick before I talk anymore about the co-op. The armory is where you can upgrade your guys' mask. Obviously, the masks are staple for the Army of Two series. You can switch weapons, so you can use any assortment of. You get 3 weapons. You get a primary, a secondary, and then a pistol. This primary and secondary can be any assault rifle, any SMG, any LMG, and the assault rifles are the ones that feel the best when you're playing the game. The LMGs don't feel bad, but the assault rifles, specifically the gun that very resembles the Scar, is probably the best weapon in the game. But that's also where you can, like I said, upgrade your mask. You can have masks from Battlefield, from Dead Space, from Medal of Honor. They have some weird masks, a smiley face mask, a panda mask. It's also where you can add your dudes. You can do your tattoos and all that kind of stuff. And when you go to the weapons, there's no blinged out weapons. I know in the last two Army 2 games, people liked blinging out their weapons, diamond encrusted pistols and diamond encrusted RPGs. Can't do that anymore. You can make it, camouflage or green or red, but there's no diamond encrusted. So if you're and there's also no high-fiving of your partner, and that was something I really liked doing in the other 2 games, is when you complete a room or complete a stage, or you clear out a room and you're like, yeah, man, that was, in your co-op partner, you're like, yeah. And then you could high-five them, you could, hit them in the back of the head and stuff like that say, hey, yeah, good job. You can't do that this time around. So if you're playing with a random and they don't have a microphone in, there's really nothing you can do to say, hey, good job. You can't, the high-five was kind of the way to do it if you were playing with a random person. So that's disappointing that that's not there. I would think that would have been just like the mask would have been a staple in the Army of Two series, and they would have brought that back. But back to the online co-op. If you're a guest, I came across a few bugs and glitches. First off, if once you start the game and you finish a certain area, a menu pops up where you rank up, you unlock, that's how you unlock the weapons. You rank up to level 25, you get new masks, new weapons, all that. There's a place to go back to the armory where you can, pick your weapons and stuff. If you're the guest, like if you're the second person in the game, you're not hosting, you cannot edit your operative. You cannot customize your operative. You cannot change his mask or anything like that. You will have to actually quit out of the game. I tried this with multiple people. Tried it as the host, as the guest. If you're the host, you can customize all that in a co-op game, fine. But if you're the guest, you're out of luck. You have to actually quit out and restart, which is unfortunate. But that's not even the biggest bug or glitch that I found. When playing, there was a certain cutscene where you will only see Alpha and Bravo's heads, and they would have a weapon, but they would have no arms, they would have no legs, and they would have no body. There's a video of that actually on my channel right now if you want to check that out. I might annotate that here right now if you want to check it out. And it was funny to watch because you can still play the game. The gameplay is still fine. You can still shoot. You can still be shot even though you can only see your head. But it was just very weird because you're seeing two guys run around with nothing but a head. And so and to fix it, all you have to do is hit restart checkpoint and it's fixed. But then there was another one kind of about halfway through the game where there's a sniping sequence, and when I ended up getting through the sniper sequence, it put me through the level. I literally through the level, and we hit restart checkpoint. That did not fix it. I was still through the level, so I had to actually restart, quit out, and restart, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. The fact that that's two bugs and glitches that should not be in the game. It should have been tested, and it's something that just embarrasses EA and the studios who worked on it. And that's probably going to do it for my Army of Two video review. I tried to talk about everything that I've written down here. I just wrote down bullet points. I don't actually have a script or anything. This is me freeballing. But if you have any questions about the game or want to know anything, by all means leave a comment below and I'll try my best to answer it. This is a game that, like I said, I've done my reviews. I do not give scores. I think it's a game that people should try out. I don't necessarily know if you should spend $60 on it. Actually, I don't think you should spend $60 on it. But it provides some dumb fun. I've read some people on the internet say it's 50 Cent blood on the sand without as much personality. And I can kind of agree with that. It doesn't have as much personality as the other two Army of Two games, but the gameplay is good enough to warrant a full playthrough of it. So I think if you're into the Army of Two games or you're into third-person shooters and you're not a Gears of War fan, because obviously Gears of War Judgment just came out, I would recommend that over Army of Two. But if you're not a Gears of War fan, I think Army of Two is something you could probably pick up in a few weeks for maybe $40-$45, or if you can possibly rent it from Redbox or anything like that. Give it a shot. I think it's a game that it's better. It's a better game than it has any right being. The demo didn't do it justice, and I think that people should try it out. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video review. Thanks for listening.